This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Any other questions you have? Hari, did you able to install the IntelliJ IDEA?
Yeah, yes, sorry.
Oh, great. Okay. So let us do some simple transformation one action, and then we'll see how to do it in your IntelliJ IDEA. Okay. So here, let me go and see the data. So here I'm creating a one RDD with orders. Orders is an RDD which we read it from the HDFS file system. So where we have the data part icon folders. So now, so we have been applying some transformations on top of this data, and later on what we are doing, we are using the collect action or take action or first action to know what is the information that we are having within the target. For example, I go for var orders that mapper. I'm taking without map, I go for filter. So filter x implies x dot contains some processing. So we are going to get only the orders which are having the processing. So those we are filtering here, and where are the odd one dot partitions dot size. How many partitions we are going to see? So the number of partitions are going to be 2. Why? Because we are read the data from HDFS, and in HDFS, this data is having only one block. So if the data is having one block, so then the partitions are going to be created minimum 2. If it is more than that, according to the number of blocks, the number of partitions are going to be created. So that we have observed in the last session also. So here we are creating a like a, we have applied some transformation, and we are knowing that on the same transformations only one more transformation we have applied it, and we are getting the data in the same partitions. Whatever the initial partitions are there, in the same partitions we are getting. So now, previously when I am going to say R1 dot collect, or if I go for count, let me see how many how many records are there. So if you are going to execute count, it is going to return the number of elements. 8,275 records are there, which are having the orders which are in the processing stage. So if I am going for R1 dot collect, what is happening here? What is going to happen here when I say collect?
It will create that the error format.
No, I didn't get, mother.
No, when we call this collect, the array of string will be created.
Array of string.
Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Why array of string?
No, array of string is mutable, right?
Hmm. So what I'm doing with the collector,
We are retrieving the data.
when you retrieve the data, this collector is an action or transformation?
Say action.
When you say action, you see
Okay.
the RDD?
No,
No, right? So,
no.
so how can you say it is array of string? Array string. So it is
No.
it is going to show you the collection of the data, array of string only, but it is going to collect all the data that we are having with respect to that RDD. It is going to collect all the partitions of your RDD. Generally, when it comes to Spark, when we are reading the data from any external source, either from HDFS or LFS, it will create the RDD of string, which means array of string only. It is a collection of the string type of the data. That is what you have to understand. That will be internally, it is going to be treated as an array of string, array of collection of the data. But here, when I say action, collect action, it is going to collect all the partitions of the RDD and gives the input to the your driver program. From the driver program only, the client from when the data is available on driver program from the client machine, we are going to be able to get to know what exactly the RDD is transformed, that data. So here, when we use the collect action, we know it is going to be failed if the volume of the RDD is more than the volume of the memory that we are having in the master machine. So in that case, the collect action may fail. So, but here, if I am going for odd one dot take, something like 10 dot for each of println. So what is going to happen here? Here it is going to print the first 10 records of the that RDD, okay, which are going to be said as a browsing. So till now, whatever the things that we did here, we observe, collect or count or first action, whatever we have applied. What is happening here? It is returning to the it is returning to the where to the terminal. Okay, it is returning to the terminal here. But I don't want these results to be returns to the your terminal. I want to, okay, I want to be stored to your Hadoop distributed file system or into your local file system. Okay, I want the results of my action, whatever the results the action is going to produce, those results I don't want to return into a terminal. I want to store into a HDFS location or LFS location. So then, how exactly that we are going to save this data? Okay. So what is the action that is going to give us to store the data into your HDFS or local file system? For that, we are having a one action that is save as text file. Okay, save as text file. This is the action that we are going to execute on RDD. So this is an action. It is not a transformation. That should be remembered. So how to apply this action on the RDD? Whenever you create a RDD, R1 dot save as text file. If you want to know what are the different kind of the options are there, for example, so just to give a tab, just give R1 dot sab or press tab, then it will give you the list of the available formats that you can able to store your output here. So what is the available formats you see? Save as object file, save as text file. So object file is nothing but a saving the data in a binary format, and text file is nothing but a saving the data in a text format. So here we are going for text file first, then we'll see how to store the data in object file and how exactly the data will get stored to your object file. Save as text file, and here you have to give the location where you want to save it. For example, here I want to save the data into the Spark Lab. In the Spark Lab, I want to store the data into the orders. This is the directory I am creating, orders processing. So this is you have to provide the directory name where exactly you want to create, you want to store your output. If the directory is not existed, what is going to happen? It is going to create a directory and it is going to store the data. And always remember, you should not give the directory which is already existed. You should always go with the new directory where you want to store your output. Okay, so in the Spark lab, it will create a directory called orders and hyphen processing, and then it will store the data into that that directory of this results of this RDB. Generally, when we run your MapReduce job also, what we are doing, we are going to provide input path and output directory. So the output directory always, it should be a new one. So we can also control that if already a directory is existed, then how to remove that directory, that is, we can control with the code. But here always we should go with the new directory where you want to store your RDD results. So now I'm executing this action. Now let us see how exactly the data is getting stored. Okay, good. So now if you go and check at the Spark jobs like 4040, because we have logged with the local mode only, 4040 is the port number where we are going to see the. Here you can see run job Spark Hadoop writer.scala. You can see. Here I have applied these functions. You can observe counter, collect, take, first. These are all the actions that we have executed it. And this is also one of the action I have executed, but it is running a job at a Spark Hadoop writer.scala. Why? Why? Because we are writing the data into the your HDFS location. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. And if you click on this, you can see the way that this data is being in this stage, how exactly the data is getting processed here. You can see, and go to this. Okay, it is reading the data from this location and writing the data save as a text file. Okay, save as text file is an action. So it is being used of your executors, which is executor ID, driver memory. It is locally, it is making use of them. And the input size of the data is 2.9 MB, and the records that we are having is these many records. On that records, it is getting processed here. So two tasks have been executed, and which are success, which are running on the host machine, that is local host. Okay, observe the things here. So now I want to look at the data, whether this is being saved to the your specified location or not. Go to HDFS name node here, or you can also go with the Q web browser. Let me open Q web browser here. Yeah, let it get open. Just 1 minute, guys. Okay, so let me log into this Q web browser. It's a long back ago we have opened Q web browser. Here it is opening the HDFS. Let it get open. So where exactly we have created our Spark Lab directory. Generally, we have created at the root level only, not in the user level. We have created root level. So Spark have a Python lab. In this, I have went for orders processing now here. So how many files you are seeing, Madan and Hari?
2 files,
2 files. Why we are seeing 2 files?
2 partitions.
2 partitions. So your RDD is having 2 partitions. So this data has been determined. How many partitions that RDD is going to have it? Okay. If, for example, if RDD is having how many partitions it is going to be divided, those many files you going to be created in a directory, and into these files that complete RDD partitions are going to be stored. That means, if for example, if I'm going to show you what is the transformation to know the data in each and every partition. What is the transformation to know the data that is available in each and every partition?
To know that,
to know the partition information, generally, you say. To know the partition information. That means, in that partition, what is the data I'm having? If, for example, it is divided into the 4 partitions. So, in each and every partition, I want to know what is the data that I am having. Then, what is the transformation?
Partition.
We are having, don't go with the partition or something like that. RDD dot, we are going to apply Bloom. Okay. So then it is going to give you the number of the data that we are having on top of your, or we can go for collect here, or take 2, for example. Okay, for example, take 10 dot for each of println. Like this, we can go for it or not. What is going to happen? Each and every partition, it is going to take 10 records, and it is going to give you the result. Okay, so I don't want to go with the for each of println, take 10 only. Yeah, so here it is going to create an array of string. So here this is an array, but it is not able to take all the things. Like yesterday I have shown you, right? So how exactly that we are going to work with the Gloom, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so in each and every partition, whatever the data that is available, that data only will be stored to the first file. First partition is going to have the data first. Like the first file is going to have the data first partition of your RDD, and second file is you are going to have the data second partition of your RDD. Like that you are going to save it. So whenever we are writing the data to your HDFS location or into your LFS location, the data is going to be written according to the number of partitions. But here the client is asking that, okay, you perform some transformations and actions and you have got the result, but I don't want to store my output into the only store my output into, if for example, if an RDD is having 4 partitions. So what is happening here? The files also 4 it is creating. In these 4 files, you are going to see the output. But the client is saying that I don't want to see the output in 4 files. I want to see this complete RDB output in a one single file only. Okay, one single file. So then how exactly that we are going to make it out? So that is what we are going to understand here. Let me open this spark.apache.org, where exactly we are having the documentation. Okay, let me open this and let me show you. These are all very, very important for us. Okay, these the transformation which we are discussing now. This is a very regularly used in every Spark applications. Okay, to to make use of your data more efficiently. Yeah. So if you go to the transformations, okay, go to the transformation. Yeah. So in this transformation, if you observe here, the transformation that we are going to work on is here. You can see coalesce. What is this coalesce? Coalesce is going to take the argument is number of partitions. What do you mean by this? It is going to decrease the number of partitions in the RTD to num partitions. That means how many partitions you are going to provide for your partition input parameter to the level, it is going to decrease the number of partitions. Useful for running operations more efficiently after filtering down a large data set. Okay, this should be remembered here. That means when to apply this coalesce here, once you apply some filtering on top of your large data set, you will get some subset of the data. And on top of that, you apply this coalesce. Why? Why we go for only coalesce on filtering the data? Why can't we go for map or flat map here? That is also you have to understand here. So that is where the difference of working with these transformations. Okay, everyone knows that okay, coalesce is going to decrease the number of partitions. So that means okay, if anyone asks you, then you can really say that okay, coalesce is used to decrease the number of partitions, so that we are going to store the data into the your output in a single file also. Okay, but why we are going for filtering down only? Why we are not going for here in the documentation itself? It is given. Okay, I am not saying it. It is saying that you have to apply this coalesce function, coalesce transformation only when you filtering down the large data set. So what is the purpose of this one here? This statement that should be understood here. Okay. So why we are going for only for filtering down? Any guesses or any idea that you have? Anything that comes to your mind, just let me know so that I can able to see how exactly that we can able to go forward. Coalesce. Yes. No idea. Coalesce. This is the function. This is the transformation we are having. What it is going to do? It is going to decrease the number of partitions here, but we are applying after filtering down. After filter. Why? If you clearly observe the, yeah, go on.
After we like for example, after we apply the transformation, some filter. Okay, if the data not able to fit into the partition, if we use this transformation, this might be fit into which are available in partition.
I didn't get exactly.
Okay.
Exactly
Actually,
what you're trying to do. For example,
we have 2 or 3 we have the partition.
Mhm.
Okay. If filter fails to fit the data into the 3 partitions,
Why it is going to fit? Why cannot it is not going to fit into three partitions? For example, I am creating a R1. Okay, R1 is having three partitions. Okay, P1, P2, and P3. Very good. This is the base RDD. So I do filter. It is going to be filtering happens parallelly, right? Parallelly means first P1 will be applied that transformation, and it is going to do. Parallelly, it is going to
yeah,
be happen. Okay,
yeah.
P2 and
For
P3.
if in P1, P2 we have some records, when we apply the filter, the data will
Hmm.
be consistent, right?
Hmm. The data will
The
be.
data less data we will get, right? It will filter that
Yes.
whatever we have the previous
Hmm.
data. So
Okay.
for that, it will one or two partitions it may having the data.
Hmm.
So remain thought P3 doesn't have any data. So why
Okay.
unnecessarily we
Hmm.
have this extra partition? So
Hmm.
when we execute this transformation,
Hmm.
that extra partitions will be removed,
Hmm.
means reduced.
Exactly. So what? Yeah. So that is what the filtering down here. Exactly. Whatever you said is perfectly correct, madam. So here, what is happening here? Let me explain the things more, proper manner. Okay. Whatever the explanation you have given, that is absolutely correct. Okay. No worries in that. So here, what is happening here? R1 is created three partitions. But whenever I apply the filter, it is going to filter the values. If, for example, it is also this after the filter also, it will create three partitions again. Three partitions will be created, but we are having the data only in these two partitions only. In P3, it is a blank partition. Okay, it is a blank partition. That means from this partition 3, filter applied also, there is no records which are going to satisfy the filtering condition. For example, let us assume. So in that case, what is happening here? It is going to generate a one blank partition. One blank partition. So if we'll get a blank partition, what is going to happen? That will lead to decreasing your performance. Performance wise, it is going to be decreased here. That means even though it is blank partition, whenever you run some other transformation, it has to check each and every partition. Even though it is not having the data, but some other RDD we are creating means it is going to do the execution on each and every partition parallelly again. So that will lead to decrease in your performance of your execution. And why it is happening only filter? Why can't it go for map and flat map?
A filter only will it will filter the data. So map and
So
these
that
are
means mm,
type change.
so yes. So whenever you apply map, what is happening generally? Whatever the n number of elements that we are having, it will generate n number of elements. Okay, it won't reduce or it won't increase. Correct?
Yes, sir.
That's what I have explained here. When I apply flat map, what is happening? If it is having n elements, it is going to generate some m elements more than this.
Yes.
But when you see the n, it is also generate some other elements. Okay, but these elements are going to be less compared to the your existing elements of your RDP. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
So to not to create any blank partitions, once you filter down, that time only that it is best suitable that you can go with this PLS. How can you know that these partitions are blank? Now you tell me. How can we know that one of the partition is blank?
Oh, I think do you have any other method?
Hmm?
Can you open the
For
document?
example, we don't have any other method. Already I have discussed it. How can we know that the partition is empty? For example, let me go with one more file, which I have taken previously. Yeah. So here, what I am trying to do, getmerge.txt. Okay. This is my RDB. Data.collector. Dot for each of println. What is going to happen? It is going to collect all the data of your partitions of your RDB. We are getting it. Now I am filtering this data. Where data, if two partitions, right? Yes. Where data, where D is equivalent to the data dot. Okay, data dot, or I can go like this. Data dot gloom dot collect. What is going to happen? We are going to see in two partitions. Okay, this is one partition, and this is going to be the one partition. Correct? Yes or no? This is one partition. This is one partition. Okay. I want to. I am going to apply a filter here, where D1 is equivalent to the data dot filter. X implies, okay, X implies X dot ends with, I'm going for one condition that is ends with, I'm going to say big data. Now you tell me, what is the output you are going to see? Oh, okay, I can go for, for big data, okay. Yeah, I can go for office. Okay, let me go for office here. What is going to be happen? Now tell me. What is the data that you are going to see as output?
All are empty only.
All are empty? Really?
Yes. Yes.
Here we have a one office ending.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
So this office ending, which partition we are having? First partition.
First partition.
In the first, in the second partition, there is no like a element which is ends with the office. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, how many partitions it is going to create? Partitions dot size. 2. If I am going for D1 dot gloom, okay, gloom dot collect, what is going to be happen? What is happening? It is having in one partition we have the data. In another partition, do we have the data?
Empty.
Empty, right? So this is the way that we are going to use the gloom. You understand the thing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the purpose of gloom is not to know the number of partitions or each and every partition information. We have to know that whether any blank partitions are getting created for that RDB or not. So once you come to know that there is a blank partition, so that means it is unnecessarily it is created. The partition is created unnecessarily where we don't have any data. But here you are having a data here. So in that case, why should we have to create? Why should we have a two partitions here? Do you get my point or not? So that is the reason only whenever you apply the filter, you may expect in one of the partition there is no data. In that case, what you are going to use? You are going to use the queries. But if you apply map or something like that, let me go like this also. Okay.
Ravi, I have a question, Ravi. You said that that office in first partition, right? If it is second partition also, is it
Yeah,
have
it will create a one more part, one more like a one in another partition also where you have the data. You have the data.
the data available in both partitions, huh?
Both partitions. Okay. So this is the point here is why we are applying the coalesce on filter the data. That is what we are understanding here. Why? Because when you apply filter in some of the partition, you don't find any element that should satisfy this condition. In that case,
Okay.
it will create an empty partition. Okay.
Okay.
How can we know that this is an empty partition? Using the Bloom transformation. Using the Bloom transformation, we'll come to know that is there any empty partitions are there? You understand?
Yes.
So then,
Yes.
according to that, what we are going to do, we will increase the performance by not to have the partition in blank partitions. So we'll reduce the number of partitions by using the coalesce function, coalesce transformation. You observe the things. For example, if I am going for var d2, I am going for, and data dot map I am applying, where x implies x dot length, for example. Okay, x dot length. And now I'm applying map transformation here. So here you know d2 dot partitions dot size. How many partitions we are going to have? 2 partitions generally. And I'm going to do d2 dot bloom dot collect. So in this case, what is happening here? You'll see that in both the partitions, see, here you have some values. Here also you are going to have some values. Are you getting my point? So that is the reason what I am trying to say. Whenever the documentation itself, why it is said is, it is best to use when you filter the data of your large data set, so that it will create some empty partitions or blank partitions, which will decrease the performance of your Spark processing. So to increase that, what we are going to do, we are going to use the coalesce. So it is not only to write the data into a one single file. Okay, that's what I want to conclude here. What I'm concluding, coalesce function is not only we want to reduce your output into a one single file and write to your HDFS location. It is to increase the performance of your Spark processing by not to work on the blank partitions. Because in your DAG flow, it is going to keep all the partitions of your RDD information, and that partitions are going to be executed one by one. Even though it is having the blank partition also, your transformation will try to look into that partition, and if any data is there, that transformation will be applied and you are going to get the data. Otherwise, it will, some core processor is going to be assigned, right? Because if I am going to have 4 core processor, what is happening? In this first core processor, in this second, in this third, 3 core processors are going to work. And when I filter also, these 3 core processors are going to be assigned to one more partition. So that means we are unnecessarily utilizing the resources of your cluster, resources of your machine. Am I correct or not? Even though we don't have the data, we are assigning one core processor to read this data from this partition. Are you able to understand the things, what I'm trying to say?
Yes, Ravi.
So Hari, you're getting it?
Yes, Ravi.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what the understanding of applying the transformations and working with your RDDs. So everyone will say, if you read the documentation, you will get to know, okay, what is the purpose of the transformation, but how internally and when you have to use the transformation. That is what the thing that makes the difference from the others. Clear, right? Now, how to apply this transformation on top of your RDD? Okay, let us see here. What is the data we are having here? We are having ARD1. Okay, we have saved the data into this directory. Now, I want to store this data into one single file. So, in this case, first of all, what I have to do, I have to apply a ARD2 is equivalent to the ARD1 dot coalesce. Coalesce, I'm going to apply. Okay, when you press tab, automatically it should pick it up. I'm waiting for it to pick it up. Okay. Does it getting picked up? Yeah, coalesce. Okay. So this is the transformation only. Yes, CE. Yeah, coalesce. coalesce, and it is going to take the number of partitions. I'm making it as a 1. Now add 2 dot partitions dot size. How many you are going to see? Now only 1 partition. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm going to execute add 2 dot save. Okay. Save as a text file. Save as text file, and I'm giving the location where I want to save it. Spark-lab. In this, I'm going to save it as others processing -1, something like this. I'm creating a new directory. Always I said you have to give the new directory where you want to save your results. So now it is saved here. Now we'll go to the location and we'll see what exactly the data is getting stored. In the viewer browser, we'll go to back and yeah. So here we have to see one directory which is going to be created, orders processing 1. So in this, how many files you are going to see? You are going to see only 1 file. In the same 1 file, the complete partitions of your RDD is getting stored into your HDFS list. Okay, all the records that it is going to show you. You got it? Yes.
Yes, yes.
So this is one of the transformations that we regularly use in order to increase the performance of your Spark processing, not to create any blank partition. If any blank partitions are created also, we are going to reduce that partitions, and then the next transformations or next processing, like the next operations that we are going to execute only on the partitions which have the data. We don't want to unnecessarily make use of your core processors to be assigned to work on the blank partitions. Clear, right?
Yes, Ravi.
Coalesce is to only to decrease the number of partitions here. Okay. Yes. So now we are having one more observation you have to make it out. For example, now here I have the data. I have the data here in 2 partitions. This odd one I am having in 2 partitions. But in these 2 partitions, I have some good amount of the data. Okay, I'm having some good amount of the data. So in this case, I don't want to keep this data into 2 partitions, because here R1 is created as a 2 partition. I don't want to keep the data into 2 partitions. I want to increase the number of partitions so that the volume of the data that is getting processed in each and every partition will be reduced, and your core processor can be executed on that like a volume of the data, and we are going to get our results in a fast manner. Because, for example, if this data is having 1 GB and one more partition is having 1 GB, but we have the we have the RAM memory is available. So in that case, what we can do, these 2 partitions we can also segregate into the more number of partitions. So to increase the number of partitions, we are having one more transformation we can apply, repartition. So coalesce is to decrease the number of partitions. Repartition is increase the number of partitions. But how exactly that we are going to use to increase the number of partitions here? What is the purpose of going for your increasing the number of partitions here? You understand here, you read this one. Reshuffle the data in the RDD and randomly to create either more or fewer partitions and balance it across them. This always shuffles all the data over the network. This always shuffles all the data over the network. That means what is happening? You can increase the number of partitions by using your repartition. You can also make it out repartition 1, repartition 2, 3, 4, like that. How many you want to make it out, you can make it out. But here, how it is going to be repartitioned here? It is reshuffle the data. Reshuffling the data means in the partition 1, I have some 10 records. Let us say in this partition 1, okay, in this partition 1, I have 10 records. In this partition 1, I have 10 records. In this, I have 10 records. If I am going to say that this R1 is increased with the repartition like 6, then what is going to happen? You cannot say that, okay, in the 6 means 5 records will be there. In the first 5 records will be there in this 10 records in this partition, and the remaining 5 records are going to be sent to one more partition like P4. And in these 5 records, it is going to keep, and the remaining 5 partitions are going to be sent to one more partition P5. And in these 5 records are going to be kept, and the remaining 5 records are going to be sent to P6. We cannot expect like this. That is what the first statement itself is. It is reshuffle. Reshuffle means all these 10 records, 10 records which are there in these 3 partitions, all these records are going to be reshuffled and they are going to be stored to the your P1, P2, P3, P4, P. Okay. In all the number of partitions, how many you have created. In that, all these records are getting reshuffled. But it is not going to say, we are not going to say that, okay, already 10 records are there. So first 5 records it will keep, the remaining 5 records it will be sent to the one more partition. It's not going to be like that. Always it is reshuffle the data here. So let us try to understand this one here. Okay, if you see here, I have applied data and I know in the data.bloom what is happening. This is the data that I am having. You understand? In the first partition of the data, I have this information. In the second partition of the data, I have this information. So now what I am trying to do, I am going to increase the number of partitions here. Where, okay, like D2 I have created D3. D3 is equivalent to the data dot repartition. I'm going for repartition. Repartition, and here I am going for 4. Repartition of 4. So now D3 partitions are going to be 4. Okay, D3 dot partitions dot size. How many partitions we are going to see? 4. Now I want to know D3 dot bloom dot collect. I have not applied any transformation. You have to observe the initial data, whatever I have taken. On that data only, I have did some repartition here. What is going to be happen? Here, how are you? Hadoop Mentor, Hadoop is a framework, big data problems. If you can see, do you see the same? Like for example, I am going for data dot bloom. Okay, bloom dot collect. You have to observe the things here. This is very important. This observation only will make the difference. What is happening in this first? We are having the data something like this. You can see. This is the first partition of your data. In the 2 partitions for your data, you are going to see in the first partition, it is going to assign some data. But this data we are having in the first partition. But when I say repartition 4 means what is happening here? It is reshuffling the data. When it is reshuffling the data, do you see the same data? Do you see the same data if you compare here and compare here? Do you have the same data here in the first partition? No, right? So it is taking some other data here, some other data. And in the second partition, it is having some other data. This is third partition, this is fourth partition. That means it is reshuffling or not? Yes, it is not going to be in the same sequence how the partitions are created initially with the RDD. When you say repartition means it is going to reshuffle all the existing partitions of the data, and that data will be like reallocated, okay, reloaded to the different partitions again. Okay, that is the advantage of going for your repartition. It is going to reshuffle the data randomly and create more or fewer partitions and balance it across them. It is going to balance. It is going to balance across your partitions. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 3, 4, and here 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it is making out balancing all the records here. For example, if you take here where n is equal to the sc dot parallelize, sc dot parallelizing the local object here. sc dot parallelize, where I am going to take some range from 1 to 20. What is going to happen? It is going to create a RDD n. Okay, so in this, what is happening here? N dot partitions. How many partitions it is going to create? How many partitions it is going to create?
That is 4 only.
4.
Sorry.
4 because you have parallelized the local object here. Correct? What? Yes or no? Yeah. N dot gloom dot collect. We have taken 1 to 20. It is an inclusive. See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First 5, second 5, third 5, 4, 5. Like that, it is taken into each and every partition. The data is getting stored. Now what I am trying to do, I am going to say where n1 is equivalent to the n dot repartition. Repartition I am making as 8, or I can go for 6. Now n1 dot glow dot collect. See what is happening here? It is trying to balance all the records here. First of all, it starts with 3, 3, okay, 6, then 4 it is taken, then it is taken 3, then it is taken 3, then it is taken 4. So, but do you see the same sequence how the data is available in your previous partitions? No. It is going to reshuffle all this data and balance that data across the number of partitions that we have created using the repartition. Are you getting my point? You're understanding the things, right? So here, when it comes to your Spark, the most very important two things are there. Okay, what are the two things? Here, whenever you are in the Spark, most of the applications, Spark applications which we are going to develop, there the very important is map and flat map. What is the difference between these two? When to apply map, when to apply flat map, and coalesce. Okay, and we have to apply this coalesce here and repartition. Okay. These are very important for us. That is the reason only the very first I am discussing this. Coalesce and repartition. Coalesce is to decrease the number of partitions. Repartitions are going to increase the number of partitions, but the data is going to be reshuffled again and will be balance that partitions of that RDD data into the number of partitions we are defined in the repartition. Coalesce is to decrease the number of partitions to not to assign any core processors to work on the blank partitions. So this repartition is going to very much successful. We are going to make use of it whenever we are working with a large amount of the data here. For example, if I have 10 GB of the data, I am saying only 2 partitions. In that case, what is going to happen? If I have 4 machines, I have 4 machines here. Let us say. So, just waiting something like this. I have 4 machines. Let us say. I have 4 machines here. In these 4 machines, I have the RAM memory. Each machine is having some RAM memory. Let us say and this RAM memory is, for example, 8 GB, 8 GB, let us say. 8 GB, 8 GB RAM memory that I am having. So whenever a partition is created, two partitions it is created. So this 10 GB of the data is being stored to the first 5 GB of the data is getting stored to this partition P1, and the second 5 GB of the data is getting stored to the one more partition P2. These two machines only the partition of your RDD is getting stored. But here we have another two machines where we have the memory, okay, where we have the memory is free and can be occupied. But we have created only two partitions, 5 GB, 5 GB is processing here. So rather than processing the 5 GB, 5 GB here, can't we accommodate the same data into the your four partitions or not? So in that case, if I'm going to say, five partitions, okay, I'm going to say re-partition 5. What is going to happen? What is going to happen? Here 2 GB, okay, here 2 GB, and here 2 GB, and here 2 GB. What is happening here? 8 GB, and remaining 2 GB can be assigned to one more machine. Here we are having some core processors. So like that, what is happening here? The number of core processor, okay, the core processor which is running on the data, this volume of the data is less compared to this, right? So that will increase your performance of your execution of your job. Okay, so that's where that we are going to use the repartition in most of the times when we are going to work with the bulk volumes of the data. When that data has been created, some number of partitions lesser, and like a more number of like the partitions which are created lesser, but the volume of the data is more, then you use the repartition so that you can balance that data across all your machines and increase the performance of your Spark execution, job execution. Okay, you understand these things? Any questions here? If you have any questions, let me know. Hari and Mother.
Vinora, we are good with this.
Yes, that's fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you have installed your IntelliJ IDEA, right? Yeah. So you have set up your. We will see how to do this same kind of the things. How to perform the same kind of the things in your IntelliJ IDEA. Let me show you how exactly that we are going to perform here. But before that, do you set up the IntelliJ IDEA with the Spark with the Scala version, with the Scala plugin?
Yes, sir.
Perfectly, you did, right? Do you created any project?
Yes.
Do you created any project?
No.
No, just install it and just kept like that,
Like,
correct?
yeah, install and plugin that Scala.
Plugins have been added, just you have installed it and you have added the plugin, that's it. Okay. Yeah, let me show you here how exactly that we are going to work with this IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, so this is the new version of your IntelliJ IDEA. So even myself also, I updated to the new version, 2020.1. Now let us see how exactly that we can develop these things, and what is the requirements that you have to specify to work with this IntelliJ IDEA with the Spark applications. Definitely, it is going to take some good amount of the time when you are running the Cloudera as well as IntelliJ IDEA on your machine at the same time, because IntelliJ IDEA requires minimum 4 GB of RAM to run it. Okay, so if you are having only 8 GB, already 4 GB is assigned to your Cloudera machine, and you are trying to open this IntelliJ IDEA, again the remaining 4 GB will be assigned to this, and you don't have extra memory to access your Windows machine. So in that case, definitely it will hang up. Okay, sometimes it may hang up, or sometimes it may not work. Something like that you will see. So whenever you are working with the IntelliJ IDEA, please stop your Cloudera machine if you don't have sufficient RAM. Here I have my machine. I'm having around 16 GB of RAM. So even though I have assigned 10 GB of RAM to Cloudera, I can use it out this IntelliJ IDEA. So you know the time that is taken to install IntelliJ IDEA, you observed. It is at least it is going to take minimum half an hour to install the complete IntelliJ IDEA, because in generally in other IDE tools like Eclipse or Scala IDE, whatever we have seen, there if you want to work with some other applications or some other framework, what you need to do, you have to add the external libraries that you should add to your build path generally. But here, when it comes to your IntelliJ IDEA, you don't need to add the external libraries. Automatically, the kind of the application is specified. It will download those compatible libraries from the internet only. From your Maven library, it is going to download it. So now let me show you what exactly how to create a project and how to set up the IntelliJ IDEA for your Spark environment. So first of all, what you have to do is you have to know the Scala version. What is the Scala version? This is Spark 2.4.0 is running. The Scala version is 2.11.12 that is getting used by your Spark. Okay. So we have to set up your IntelliJ IDEA to compatible with this Scala version, because your IntelliJ IDEA, the new version is going to take the newly updated Scala version. But we don't want that. If you are going to take that newly updated Scala version by default, then you will see some compatible issues for running the application with this Spark 2.4.0. So that is the reason, first of all, you have to observe here, whenever you log into this Spark session, you will see this Spark 2.4.0 is using the Scala version of 2.11.12. So the same Scala version only you have to set up here. How do you set up here? First, you can go for file. Okay, file here. Let me take it out. Yeah, file. In the file, you create a new project. Go to the new and create a one project here. See, this takes some good amount of the time. Don't worry, because of our RAM memory. When you're creating a project here, it will go for Scala and SBT. Okay, we are creating a Scala, like a Scala project with the Scala build tool here. So we'll select SBT and click on next. So then it is going to fetch all the available versions of your Scala and SBT. Here you can see it is prompting the latest version of your Scala here. So what you have to do here is, okay, the name of the project I'm going to make it up. For example, Spark Spark example, something like this I'm creating here. And this is the default location where exactly your projects are getting stored. And the JDK version automatically picked up from the internal machine. In your internal machine, what is the JDK is there, that version will be picked up here. And try to set up this SVT version always. I feel 1.2.8, which is the Scala's build tool version, which is support compatible for all kind of the Scala and Spark versions. So some other versions are there, but they may have some bugs which needs to be fixed up. So why should we go and we worry about that? So we'll go with this SVT version 1.2.8. And in this Scala version, what is the version we have to select here? The same version which is being used by your Spark 2.11.12. So we will go for 2.11.12 here. Okay. Just to drop down here, you will see 2.11.12. and click on finish. Okay, once you fill it up, okay, either you want to open the very first time when you create project, it will automatically create. But here I have already created a one project for Scala example. So whether you want to open here or your new window, I'm going for this window only. Okay, in the same window only I want to open. I don't want to go with a new window. So that means in the same window it will create a one more project with this one. Yeah. So here open this one Spark project, and here SRC and the main and Scala. Okay. So here you can observe here it is doing some build path. It is going to create it. That means the Scala version which we have set up, SBT version we have set up. For those supported libraries, it is directly going to be downloaded from the your Maven libraries. Okay, let us wait for it. So without having any conflict with our IntelliJ IDEA, what I'm doing here is I'm going to close this one. :Q, come out of your Spark context.
Ravi, in office using which one? IntelliJ or else Eclipse?
Yeah, IntelliJ. Okay.
Okay.
For developing the Spark-based applications, everyone will use IntelliJ IDEA. It will be having the having the compatible with your Python, Scala, Java, okay, and the Beam tool, your Linux commands, shell script, Perl, all these are going to be available where you can run with your IntelliJ IDEA.
Okay.
Okay. And one more thing I want to make it clarify you, Hari and Madan, both of you, whenever you are going to close or whenever you are going to shut down your Cloudera machine, you should go like this. You should not say close, or you should not go for just power off or shut down, something like that. You should not do it out. Always go to the su space root and give the password as Cloudera and then use the command power off. Then
No.
you don't get to see the problems that Hari was seeing. Okay.
Usually, how I am
Previously,
doing.
Hari.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ravi. We have this into button on right corner.
Here.
Yeah. Yeah. When you click on, we can find this power off button.
So here when you click on it, it is going to show power off. This one.
Yes. Yes.
No. You should not go that one. That will make some files to be corrupted. Okay. You should not go like that. So you should have to go for su space root and then say power off. Then what is going to happen? It is going to shut down all the internal services of your Cloudera machine, so that no file is going to be corrupted. You should not go like that close. If you are going, this means what is you are doing means without doing the shutdown, you pressing your switch like you do, right? Without shutting down your system, you are just off your switch. Then it will close it, but abruptly it is closing, right?
No. Completely it will be closed.
Yeah, so but even though what you have to do is you have to go with like this only. Then only your system will be run for a long time. Otherwise, you will see that kind of the problem. Sometimes your name node will be get corrupted and that is not going to be started. Okay, always follow the same thing. su space root, give the password Cloudera and execute the command power off. Clear? To make your system more secure and safe. Otherwise, so after some time working, again you have to extract the zip file and again you have to add it. Okay, again you have to start from the fresh. Yeah, see here it is doing the extraction of all the jar files from the different modules. Okay, the version 2.11.12. Okay, all these jar files it is going to add to your build path. of your project. Once it is say successful, then we can able to create a project here. So it is taking some good amount of the time, you can see. Okay. So let us wait for it to successfully map or successfully download all the libraries. Yeah, it is shutting down server. That is the message you are going to see when it is successful. Successfully, it is extract all the required jar files with respect to your Scala version and Spark version, Scala version and SBT version. And now you see it is finished here. Once it is finished, you select the Scala, right click. When you press right click here, it is going to show you here. You should say Scala. I have set Java is inbuilt, it is going to be there, and Scala, once you add the plugins, then Scala class you are going to see. And here you see Python, even I have set up the Python for this IntelliJ IDEA, so Python file also I can see here. So now I'm going for Scala class here. Go to the Scala class. Here you can see what is the type of the classes you can create in your Scala. As I said, either you can go for class, case class, or triad object and triad. So case object is newly introduced, but don't worry about this one. We have already did what is class, what is case class, object, and triad. So I'm going to create an object here. Just give some name of the object here. For example, I'm going to create orders processing. Anything that you can give it a, but it is always recommended that first letter should be a capital. Recommended it is. It is not mandatory that you should have to use like this only. It is just a recommendation. Just to create a object. Yeah, so object is created here. So you know how to work with this Scala. So you have to write a main method, right? So you are going to write a main method, def main, okay, and which is going to take args of, args of array of string, array of string here, okay, and just open the block and press it. So it is going to automatically pick that unit. If you are not writing anything, then it will return the unit here. Unit is nothing but which is not going to have any data in it. So that is what it is going to take this syntax. When you press tab, automatically it will pick it up the exact syntax here. Now here you are seeing my font size is very good, okay, and the screen is also very good, white color or something like that. So how to set up this one here? You go to the file here, go to the settings, okay, go to the, that means to make your IDE environment more good looking, okay. So in this case, what we have to do is here you can see the editor. If you go to the editor, here you see the font. There you change the size of the font and the spacing. If you want, you can change it out. I have changed the size of the font to 18, so that is the reason I'm able to see the data is something like this. And here, in one more thing, what you have to do in appearance, or you go to the plugins here. Plugins already we have added. Okay, appearance only we'll go for it. Here theme. In this theme, select this IntelliJ Lite. Okay, Windows 10 Lite, Dracula High Contrast. These are all the 4 themes that we are having. I'm going with this IntelliJ Lite here. That is the reason I'm able to see like this, so that I can able to see the screen very in a like a bright manner, so that my eyes, your eyes, cannot be strained to look at the data. Yeah. So now we know we have set up the Scala and we have done it, but we want to make this environment to work with your Spark. How do you set up? How do you set up your Spark? How do you set up or compatible this IDE environment with the Spark? That is very, very important. Here, if you see here in the same project, you are going to see build.sbt file. Just click on here. It will open. The name of the project version is always 0.1 only. And what is the Scala version? It is showing 2.11. Now you have to add the library dependencies for your to run the application using of your Spark. How to write these library dependencies? For that, we are having a method called library dependencies. Something like this, you have to write it. Okay, library dependencies. And here, after you write this one, automatically it is taken, right? So here, what you have to do here is, let me take it out here. First of all, you have to go to the spark.apache.org. Okay, you have to know how to link, how to make a link of this IDE environment with your what we can say Spark applications. That is very, very important settings. And where we can able to find this one here. Just give me a second. Yeah, so here go to the spark.apache.org. So here you can see this one. And go to the documentation, older versions, other versions. And here go to the same version. Oh, I just take some time. Yeah. So here in the RDD's accumulators, you go to here, and here you will find linking with the Spark. You observe it. Linking with the Spark. So here you are going to have this group ID, artifact ID, version. So this you have to add. To write a Spark application, you need a Maven dependency on Spark. So that is going to be available through Maven Central at this is the location. Okay, so here this group ID, artifact ID, version ID, how to specify this in your build.sbt file. Okay, that is very, very important for us. How to set up this one in the build.sbt file here. Okay, let me take it out here. Here we have to write the same way, colon equivalent to, and here you have to write two things, two, and this one percentile and then percentile. Okay, this is what you have to develop here, and then double quotes. In the first double quote, you have to write the group ID. What is the group ID? Group ID is arg.apache.spark. This is what you have to write it. arg.apache.spark. And in the second, you have to write the library dependencies. Spark-4 2.11. Okay, I'm just copying here. I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and in the third, you have to write. Okay, you have to write 2.4.0. This version. Okay, 2.4.0. So this is what you have to mention here. Okay, 2.4.0. Yeah. So what it is doing here. Yeah, so here you have to write it. Why it is speaking of module ID required. It should not take this one. So here you can see it is updating the indexing here. Okay, it is going to update the indexing here. It is because it is going to trying to set up your environment to suitable with this Spark core application. So here it is picking up this automatically. What is this here? It should not take this one here. What is this? It is going to take some good amount of the time, Madan, Hari. Okay, it is going to take some good amount of the time because to add all the libraries, okay, to add all the libraries downloaded from your Maven central library. So to do that one, it is going to take some good amount of the time. Let me do it up. So here, there is some mistake. Yeah, so now you can see here. Here plus equivalent, not this one. This is for your inbuilt option. This is a plus equivalent. That is what the mistake that we did here. So once you are going to add this library dependency, this is for your Spark core part. If you are going to work with some other things, then again you have to go for, like for example, you want to go for your what is that Spark SQL, then you have to add some other libraries again. So it is going to take some good amount of the time to download all the library dependencies that are supported to this arg.apache.spark with the core version of 2.11, 2.4.0. Okay, now you can see here. This is what the mistake that I did. I found it. So here it is going to show importing Spark examples SBT project and this thing that you can see. Yes, now it is syncing up. Okay. So what you do is till here, whatever the things that I did, you please set up this on your machine with the library dependencies. And once you set up this one, then we'll see tomorrow how to develop the same thing, like those actions and transformations we'll use it up. And we'll run here one simple application with the Spark, Spark application with the IDE code. Clear? So it will take some time, definitely. Okay. So you please set up here till here, create a project. Okay, create a project and go to the Scala object and create a one object for Scala, and then go to the build.svt file. There you add these things like this library dependencies. Like this, you have to add these libraries. this way. And this you can check it out in the spark.apache.org, where you can see the linking, okay, linking with your Spark. This is what you have to take. Clear? Any questions? Yes, Madan and Hari.
No, Ravi.
Yeah, you please set up till here. Create a project and set up the environment to work with your Spark. And tomorrow we will work with this application and we'll see. So this week, till this weekend, okay, till this weekend, we are going to see with the Spark core only, because we have to understand all those actions and transformation. In the next week, we'll see Spark SQL, Spark Streaming, and all of them. Okay, they are not that much of tough to work on it. They are very easy to understand, very easy to develop the things. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Hari. Madan. Hello.